This guy, he called and apologized the other day because he thought he said things that were a little bit too strong, and I appreciated that.
That was President Trump responding to the spat within MAGA about the potential US involvement in Iran. This comes after a week of bitter infighting among the Make America Great Again base. But is the MAGA movement making up and reuniting? We still have questions. Tucker Carlson, you might recall, hit hard at Trump throughout the week and made claims that this potential war was not, quote, America first. Additionally, earlier this week, Tucker Carlson gave Senator Ted Cruz a thorough dressing down in a brutal interview about going to war with Iran. But now Donald Trump is saying that Tucker Carlson gave him a call to apologize for being too harsh. Cenk, what do you think about this call? Do you believe this report? And what do you think Tucker actually said? Do you think he apologized?
A, of course we don't know. B, my guess is yes. And I'll tell you why. I think that both Tucker and Bannon, as you'll see in a minute, are playing a game of trying to win Donald Trump over to their side. And they know that if you cater to his ego, oh, you know, I hope I didn't cross a line, beloved Mr. President, and you're so amazing and heroic and wonderful, and I'm nothing but your lowly servant. But could you please not attack Iran because we kind of said anti-war? That's my best guess, but I don't know. And whether, okay, but I do know this. I'm more confident that Tucker Carlson is actually anti-war. That he didn't go and say, oh, I apologize, I think you should attack Iran. No, that I would be shocked by.
Yeah, let's get into more. For a refresher, this is what Tucker posted on X just a few days ago. The real divide isn't between people who support Israel and people who support Iran or the Palestinians. The real divide is between those who casually encourage violence and those who seek to prevent it, between warmongers and peacemakers. Who are the warmongers? They would include anyone who's calling Donald Trump today to demand airstrikes and other direct US military involvement in a war with Iran. On that list, Sean Hannity, Mark Levin, Rupert Murdoch, Ike Perlmutter, and Miriam Adelson. At some point, they will all have to answer for this, but you should know their names now. To which Trump responded, calling him Kooky Carlson, posting on Truth Social, somebody please explain to Kooky Tucker Carlson that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. Now, let's hear more from Trump on this alleged apology call from Tucker. Take a look.
Have you seen the Tucker Carlson and Senator Ted Cruz interview? It seems like this issue on whether or not the United States should strike is kind of dividing a lot of your supporters.
No, my supporters are for me. My supporters are America first. They make America great again. My supporters don't want to see Iran have a nuclear weapon. Tucker's a nice guy. He called and apologized the other day because he thought he said things that were a little bit too strong, and I appreciated that. And Ted Cruz is a nice guy. I mean, he's been with me for a long time. I'd say once the race was over, he's been with me ever since, right? But very simple. If they think that it's okay for Iran to have a nuclear weapon, then they should oppose me, but nobody thinks it's okay.
Now, it seems that some of MAGA may be softening their tone and suggesting that they will ultimately support the president if he decides to join Israel in its strikes against Iran. Steve Bannon was one of the voices earlier this week warning that attacking Iran would split the country in half. Now, Bannon is saying that MAGA will trust whatever decision that Trump ultimately makes. Here is Bannon speaking to reporters at a Christian Science Monitor event on Wednesday. Take a look.
And this is why I think if President Trump decides there's not a diplomatic alternative or an economic warfare alternative, that if he feels, particularly with the nuclear situation, the fedora, that he feels that he has to do it, it's in the best interest to do it because he's been consistent. No nuclear weapon, and we've said that too. We've said that too. No, they cannot have, they're not trustworthy enough to have a nuke. President Trump decides to do that, I know, and particularly his skills as a communicator, that he will come and walk people through it. In the MAGA movement, look, there'll be some, but the vast majority of the MAGA movement go, look, we trust your judgment, you've walked us through this. We don't like it. In fact, maybe we hate it, but we'll get on board.
Not to be outdone, Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene posted on X her support of the president. I'm so glad President Trump is giving time for diplomacy to work with Iran and Israel. Every other American president would be dropping bombs already, killing many innocent people, and the neocon warmongers would be celebrating without a care of innocent lives slaughtered. This is why he has a 56% approval rating. I'm praying for peace and prosperity for Israel and Iran and every nation on earth, especially the USA. Alex Jones was equally complimentary of Trump, but still made a, quote, direct emergency warning to him while on a show with Steve Bannon. Take a look.
If you walked into the Oval Office this morning, Alex Jones, and had 5 minutes with the commander-in-chief, go ahead and roll. Tell me what Alex Jones tells him right now.
Mr. President, I absolutely agree with you that the mullahs want to destroy Israel and that they're unpopular and that they are a serious danger to world peace. I'm not going to tell you what I think you should do. I would just ask you to please take your time on this, sir, and not be stampeded into anything that could potentially not just derail your agenda to save America and the West and the world, but could trigger the end of the world as we know it.
Meanwhile, some concerning new polling indicates that Republicans are in favor of strikes on Iran and will back Trump over his dissenters. Take a look.
The clear majority of Republicans in any poll that you look, GOP on US airstrikes against Iran, if Iran's pursuing nuclear arms, you see it here. The Republican Party, again, is with Donald Trump, 69% in this particular poll from the Chicago Council that was taken a few months ago, compared to 27% who are opposed. But again, even if you look at the other polling data, it all points in the same direction. Republicans are with Donald Trump on this particular issue, and they're with Donald Trump at large. And when you go against Donald Trump, you go down.
And that's just one poll. On the other hand, some polls reflect very different findings. For instance, this YouGov poll found that 16% of US adults believe the US military should not get involved with Iran. The Economist YouGov poll we talked about earlier this week found that only 23% of Republicans said we should get involved in the war. 53% said no. Meanwhile, Steve Bannon is going so far as to call for an investigation into various Fox News personalities, including Kayleigh McEnany, Sean Hannity, and Mark Levin, for supposedly, quote, representing Israel. Take a look.
It's almost criminal what is going on. In fact, I think an investigation into like what is the information Fox News is getting, is money changing hands? Are they be getting ads? I mean, I would actually say a FARA investigation should take place of Fox News, and it should take place of Fox News like starting today.
So there's a lot to consider here, Cenk. Do you think that the MAGA base is getting behind this idea of direct strikes, US strikes on Iran?
No, not at all. That's, hey, Sharon. That's a, hey.
Hi, Cenk. Hi, Jordan.
Hey.
Hello.
So if that's the first time I've seen Harry Anton be dishonest, because
wow.
Yeah, I've given him a lot of credit. He's pointed out issues with both sides. He's been honest about the problems with the Democratic Party, Republican Party, etc., and when they do well. But he said he looked at all the polls. No, that's not true at all. So we just showed you the YouGov poll, and Republican voters in that poll are overwhelmingly against the war. And his framing of that segment was, well, you better not oppose Donald Trump and the Republican Party, okay? So if he's saying war, you got to say war. And I'll cherry pick one poll that I don't believe that poll at all. It doesn't match any of the other polls I've seen, okay? And then Harry Anton says that one poll represents all the other polls. That's just not true. So I don't know why he said that, but is cable news in favor of war? Always, always. So, that was super disappointing. I'd like to see him show all the polls, because I just don't believe him. Not I don't believe him, it's a fact that it's not true. Not only, look, you get the real official polls like YouGov, and then there's the non-official polls. I know he's not gonna quote those, so this is less about Anton in that case. But Charlie Kirk polled his own audience. 90% said don't go to war. Only 10% said yes. Why do you think Charlie Kirk is even slightly dancing around the edges of criticizing Trump's actions here? I mean, Charlie Kirk has actually been a giant ass kisser of Israel his whole career. So why is he like tepidly saying, well, maybe we shouldn't, but I'm sorry, Donald knows everything, right? Because his own audience is like, no, we don't want to go to war. 90-10, what part of that is complicated? So there's the whole Republican Party 90-10? No, it's complicated. There's the old boomers who watch cable news and Fox News, and they're like, yes, war is always great. We're gonna do Iraq again. Glory days. And then there's tons of MAGA who are totally against it, and there's tons of people that are Trump supporters that are in the middle and don't know what to do. Partly because they think, oh my God, Trump is amazing and he knows what he's doing. And if he says we gotta stop their nukes, but Trump's lying to you. They don't have nukes. They don't have close to having nukes. Now, why can I say that? But Bannon and Tucker and all of them are all tiptoeing. Because, okay, so let's be clear. There's two possibilities, and I don't know which one it is, but I have a guess, and I'm curious what your guys' guess is. One possibility is, oh yeah, they've tried to stop the war for whatever reason. They thought their audience is against the war, etc. But then now that they haven't, they're just cowards and they're just back to licking their Trump's boots. The second potential reason is, if you attack Trump on this, he'll dig in and then we'll definitely have war. So both of those things could be true. I think Tucker Carlson is definitely against the war. I think Bannon has gotten pushed there, certainly by his audience. Charlie Kirk is not there at all yet, but is being pushed aggressively by his audience. Marjorie Taylor Greene with her voters, etc. And so, I wonder what you guys think. But here's how we'll know for sure. This is speculation in this round. But if going forward, Bannon and Tucker and all those guys continue to hit the neocons and the establishment and their proxies by saying things like Fox News hosts should be investigated for supporting a foreign government of Israel, like Bannon just said, that means they are anti-war. They're trying to ingratiate themselves to Donald Trump so that they don't alienate him and he actually comes out on their side and they win against the neocons. If it turns out Bannon and Carlson and Marjorie Taylor Greene, et cetera, from now on, just go, oh, Trump is right, the war is great, we understand. He made a case for it, they can't have nuclear weapons, and they become pro-war, then there's no hope for redemption for them on any issue for the rest of their lives. Because then that means they were the biggest frauds that anybody has ever seen. And we're not gonna be overly surprised by that, but it hasn't happened yet. There's no question that they will all have said 1,000 times that they're against war. If they turn around just to lick Donald Trump's boots, then you'll know exactly what their character is. Okay, Sharon, what do you think's happening here?
Well, I think part of the problem is when you dance in an untruthful space for so long, I don't know. It's probably the second one. Tucker does not want war, perhaps Marjorie doesn't, but I think Tucker, Bannon, Marjorie Taylor Greene can all be bought. So I don't know. I really just don't know. The other part of it is listen, this is the guy who is at the top, and so you have to play to his personality, play his game, but it's a little bit like a toddler who never picks up their toys, and they pick up one toy and you have to give them heaps of praise and saying, oh, you're the world's greatest cleaner, just to kind of mess with their heads and get them to pick up more. That's like who Donald Trump is. But it's just like a nutty space to me. I don't know who Tucker is. Maybe he's softened, different, I don't know, since the firing from the Fox News channel, or maybe he's up to something. I don't know. And I didn't answer your question, Jank, but it's just hard to tell when people move in spaces that I think have lacked integrity for a high percentage of time.
Yeah, just one quick thing before we go to Jordan. He doesn't have to be softened at all. He could be strategizing, hey, if I'm anti-war, and to be fair to Tucker Carlson, he's had an anti-war position now for a number of years, right? He was for the Iraq war originally, then he apologized for that and turned against it. He's been anti-war throughout. But it could also just so be strategic. If he's gonna run in 2028, he thinks most of MAGA is anti-war, now he'll get to say, I told you not to go into Iran, And remember all the other Republicans who said to go into Iran, so I'm the only one you could vote for. And that would actually be well played strategically on the Republican side. Jordan, what do you think?
Yeah, I want to point out something about the methodology in both of these polls. I wouldn't say that the one CNN cited was fake per se. It did seem to have a misleading premise, which would goad more respondents into a certain answer. If you notice what Harry Enten was saying, it was if Iran is pursuing or working toward, I can't remember the exact language, a nuclear weapon, they're trying to develop nuclear arms, more people then, yes, supported a strike. If you look at the YouGov poll, it's just a straightforward, should the US get involved? So when you lay that out, across the board, you do find more Americans who are opposed to Iran having nuclear weapons. But what's important to drive home, and most mainstream coverage, and certainly Hawks will never mention this, US intelligence found earlier this year, and of course Tulsi Gabbard mentioned it in her confirmation hearing, but separately, US intelligence found that Iran had not restarted its nuclear program. They are at least years away from developing a nuclear weapon if they were to pursue the development of a nuclear weapon. So to ask respondents about a current active situation in the Middle East right now under a false premise is deeply, deeply irresponsible and elicits more hawkish responses from those poll respondents.
Yeah, I have a couple more points. First of all, that's a terrific point by Jordan about that poll that CNN featured, because it's a giant false premise. It's the exact kind of false premises that CNN did to drive us into the Iraq war. Well, if Iraq has weapons of mass destruction, but they didn't. Every time you said if, people made it seem like they do have weapons of mass destruction. Iran does have nukes, but Iran doesn't have nukes, and our own intelligence has confirmed that they don't have nukes, and they're not anywhere near having nukes. In fact, they don't even have a nuclear weapons program, according to Tulsi Gabbard, at least when she was being honest in congressional hearings before her latest twist into more groveling and ass kissing of Trump, which we reported on earlier in this show. So when they frame it that way, it's like framing it like this: if Iran is going to kill your mother, should we do something about it? Well, yeah, if they're going to kill my mom, we should do something about it. But there's no evidence that they are going to kill my mom. Nope, you said yes. That's it. Everybody wants to attack Iran. So that's garbage CNN driving us to war as usual. Anyway, so if you're wondering, yeah, but which side is MAGA on? There's this ludicrous theory on some portions of the left that all of MAGA is actually pro-war and they're lying about being anti-war. But guys, there's reasons for politicians to lie about their position, even reasons why media might lie about their position. But why would a MAGA guy lie about his own position? They have, some of their positions are heinous and they don't lie about those, they just say it to you, right? Like, oh yeah, we think Abrego Garcia wasn't guilty and Mahmoud Halil wasn't guilty, so what? Lock them up, they're immigrants. They don't hide any of their opinions. They have no reason to hide any of their opinions. And why do you think Tucker Carlson, Steve Bannon, et cetera, or all of them are pushing towards anti-war? Because their voters, their audience is pushing towards anti-war. And so how can you tell? You could tell in what is said between the lines. So Alex Jones at the end, he's like, oh, well, the president should do whatever he thinks is right. He's such an amazing guy. And so if he attacks Iran, though, of course, the whole world might die. That's Alex Jones saying, don't attack Iran, but I'm kissing your ass so you don't hate me, so you don't dig in further. And even in the groveling one that Bannon did and the one that we showed you, and he said, and if he says we should go to war, he could make a good case for it, I'm sure, even if we hate it, right? So, but you could say, no, they're all lying and that this is all a giant trick, et cetera. But none of that matters. The only guy making the decision is Trump. So let's hope to God that I'm right at least about some significant portion of the MAGA base, and that they actually make a push here. Because the only people who could beat the neocons within these 2 weeks that Trump is deciding, this is another comical point that some on the left make. They say, no, if we put enough pressure from the left, Trump will change his mind. Come on, please don't embarrass yourself, please. I mean, I would love to have that kind of power. Okay, Trump, make sure you change your mind. He's not going to listen to the left at all. He's having a contest between MAGA and the neocons. So let's see what the MAGA guys have. If I'm wrong and they actually love war, then okay, great. We'll see it and I'll come out and tell you about it. Or if they're impotent and they say, oh, well, we didn't want to fight the neocons, and so we were okay with the war because Daddy Trump told us to be okay with it, then the jury will come in on MAGA. And I'm curious to see how that's going to go. Sharon, last thoughts.
Okay, you made me laugh with that one. The left has the power over Trump. The only thing I'll say is this: this fake escalation is so easy to detect. I mean, if this were real, you don't need 2 weeks. This is minute by minute. Not even day by day. This is imminent. So this whole thing that in 2 weeks he'll decide, and those people who are the last in his ear can maybe get him to move one way or the other is just, I just find it so silly. If it weren't so serious, it would actually be funny.
Jordan?
I don't know if the best use of our time is to determine whether or not these people are sincere in being anti-war. Let them demonstrate their values through their actions, right?
Yep.
They can say what they want, but we'll just believe them when it comes down to when things actually escalate, when we are participating. If they flip and they throw their support behind Trump full-throated, we know them to be liars. So I'm just gonna wait and see for most of these figures.
That's a super sensible position, right? And so far, 2 people have proved themselves as actually anti-war. Thomas Massie, and then on the media side, Dave Smith. So the libertarians have come in principled, and bless their hearts. Dave Smith agreed with us that we should unite against the war, so we started unitedagainstwar.com. Please check that out. And what it is it's a pledge to say, I'll never vote for a politician that votes for yes on this war. They're gonna vote next week, and if they give Trump the power to do that, you defeat them in your own primaries, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican. Unitedagainstwar.com. Unless you think, hey, if Daddy Trump's getting paid by the Israeli lobby, then we should all go die for Israel. Okay, well, that's your call. We're all gonna find out together. Jordan's totally right. We're gonna see, was MAGA anti-war, or were they monumentally full of crap the whole time? Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.